Grill building is also a part of sustainable urban development. That's why on today's program, we also arranged to have a talk with one expert. He's from France. He had taken part in the procedure of establishing the first grill building council in Vietnam back in 2007. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Yannick Millet. Thank you so much for joining us today. So the Vietnam Grill Building Council was established back in 2007, aiming at raising the awareness of people in Hanoi and also in Vietnam about the grill building. So may you share with us about your feelings when working and joining the process of establishing this organization?
Well, I think that I've been working here for 12 years. I worked mainly in the industry before, at least for the past 10 years in the construction industry. And thereafter I wanted to redirect myself and to reorient myself towards a more sustainable way of doing. And then I joined the Vietnam Green Building Council in 2009. Actually, I really wanted to, after having worked in the construction industry, I really wanted to try to bring something for Vietnam. I would say, having witnessed Hanoi in 2002 and even earlier in 2092, I really wanted to see, I would say, a greener way of doing things in business, and especially in the construction industry.
One of the VGBC milestones in its operation so far has been the declaration of Lotus Label. So may you share with us about that?
Well, I think that one of the strongest milestone, I would say, that the VGBC could do is to release some green building rating tools. Most of the green building councils in the world are also working towards defining some green benchmark for the construction industry. So we released the first tool in 2010 to deal with non-residential buildings, then 2011 with residential building, and later in 2013 for building in operation, just to rate green operations. So far, to my knowledge, I think that there are about 5 fully certified Lotus buildings in Vietnam. The first project we registered was in Hanoi, though. That's the UN greenhouse that you might have heard about, which is about to be completed in Kim Ma Street. Very, I would say, very good, probably the highest performance building, I would say, in this area. And there is one registered project, which is the Viettin Bank Tower.
What are your comments on the development of grill buildings in Hanoi, Vietnam, and also the awareness of people and also the policy maker about grill building?
Basically, there is a kind of general now interest growing. I would say comparatively to 2009, where we were somehow preaching in the middle of the desert, trying to say, yeah, you need to go for green, you need to go for green. Now, there is a need for developers to think differently, because they cannot sell the same way as they were selling before, without having any consideration about the quality that they were providing, without having any consideration about the buyers either. So now I think that since this crisis happened, they had to somehow question likely themselves and try to see what they could do. So I think that, yeah, that's why the green aspect is now probably more sexy, more fashionable than it used to be before, because they need to get a kind of a small competitive advantage from a marketing perspective against their competitor. So having them going for green is probably bringing them some of the benefit. Now also the people, also the developers who are building and operating their own building, they have maybe now this kind of consciousness saying that, okay, once you build the building, the construction and the design is representing just only 10 to 20% of the total cost you are going to pour in your building, meaning that 80% of the money you are going to put in this building is going to be put during operations. So that makes sense to have some very efficient operations, because you are going to spend 80% of all your money inside. So I think that also now this kind of mindset is changing, and the people are trying to think, okay, maybe we might be thinking longer term in order to make better business. So that's also one element. The government as well is taking now its role. I think that at least through the green growth strategy that was released by the Prime Minister office 2 years ago, now every ministry is in charge of building up its own plan, whether it's on the agriculture side, whether it's on the industry side, whether it's on the construction side. So the Ministry of Construction now is more and more active, trying to first implement the new energy efficiency building codes. For all buildings over 2,500 square meters, they will have to implement the new energy efficiency building codes. It's not green building, but it's energy efficiency, just only one very important component of green. But still, that's the beginning. At the urban planning level, also there are some research which are made in order to develop urban areas in a more sustainable ways.
With the support of Vietnam Grill Building Councils, how has the capacity of Hanoians or Hanoi's human resources working on developing grill buildings been improved?
Well, as I mentioned, it is all linked together. I think that the VGBC trained about 120 or almost 130 Lotus AP, what we call Lotus accredited professionals, meaning that either architects or engineers that knows exactly how works the green building system and that can help, I would say, the design team and the owner to carry on with the certification process. And out of this 130 people, I think that about 1/3 were in Hanoi. Those people are working, I would say, to try to convince investors and developers in going in this direction.
So what are the short-term solutions for buildings which have already built in Hanoi, making it becoming greener?
I think the buildings who have already been built, you can deal with more efficient operations. Because in a building, you can play on two different elements. The passive aspect meaning the building envelope, meaning the way the building is oriented, the kind of window, the windows to wall ratio, the kind of glazing you are using. So these are the passive aspects. So sometimes the passive aspects cannot be very much touched. Although they are very, very important, because if you have a 100% glazed tower, then you're going to have a lot of heat and energy coming from the sun every single day. Then it means that you need to have a very big cooling load in order to provide some kind of comfortable working conditions or living conditions inside. So that's where the architects has a very important role to play, making sure that the envelope is going to be done. First of all, the orientation of the building is going to be correct. For existing building, depending on the configuration, you can refurbish some area. You can do maybe change some of the glazing or put some shading system at some point. But most of the time, refurbishment is dealing with changing some of the active equipment, i.e. the air conditioning, the lighting systems, the hot water system, and so on and so on. This is where you can also play in order to make savings. But again, this is not exactly a green building, because green building, as I mentioned, they have to be designed green. They cannot become green along the way. You can have greener operation in a normal building, but you cannot have a normal building becoming green, because it's a holistic approach, and you need to take into account and consideration the pollution, the social aspect, the environment, the water, the materials, which materials you used in order to build your building, of course the energy.
What are the lessons that Hanoi can learn from the previous practice or previous experience, or what other lessons can Hanoi learn from other cities and provinces in the way to have more green building in the capital city of Vietnam?
Well, I think that in the region, as I mentioned, the Vietnam Green Building Council is working with a lot of green building councils in the region. So the one in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in Philippines. You have also Korea. You have a bit of China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and so on and so on. The GBCs are meeting at least 1 or 2 a year. So we are also very much well connected. I think that if we can compare, I would say, where Vietnam is comparatively to I would say comparable countries like Malaysia, like Indonesia and Philippines, I think that where Vietnam could take, I would say, good examples is from Malaysia. Because in Malaysia, they started in 2009, their certification system. Now they have more than 500, almost 600 green buildings. The government plays also a very important role by trying to push, I would say, for the energy efficiency building codes and the way to implement them to create this lowest baseline. They define also incentive for developers. Then they were given some financial incentive or non-financial incentive. So basically, they could be given some additional GFA, so gross floor area. So you mean that you can make more business because you have more space. So there are plenty of different incentives that can be found for the government to help the private sector. And on the other hand, also the government can play a very important role by greening its own building stock, meaning that and leading, I would say, and showing that, okay, yeah, we can do it. We are a long-term investor, so of course, if we can do it, then the industry can do it. So that's also one way, and it's also to make sure that also all new architects, the new generations of architects and engineers will be also trained enough. So I think that now is changing. I think we could see a lot of first of all, a lot of interest from young architects and engineers at the university. The VGBC did a lot of training over there, I would say, because their teacher also was very interested in having those kind of notions, I would say, spread, I would say, among them. And I remember 2 years ago in Singapore, one Vietnamese architect got one of the highest prize by Future Art. So it means that for a project in Sapa. So, you know, it means that this new generation is ready, I would say, to somehow operate. Now they just need to be given, I would say, the will so that they can do and they can design accordingly.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
The talk with Mr. Yannick Millet also wrap up the program for today. We hope that the information that we have provided you in this special program help you to understand more about the process of heading toward a green and sustainable development for the city of Hanoi. For the last minute of the program, stay with us and have a look at the real image of Hanoi and also the special message that the two special guests of today's talk show want to share. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time.
To Hanoi, to keep the good opportunity to go on a green city, sustainable development, is to look back to the heritage of Hanoi. I mean, heritage is not only old building. Heritage is also a relationship between buildings and vegetation, trees, etc., lakes in the city. And in fact, this is the main opportunity, the main good point to go to a green city, to Hanoi.
It's not only the government responsibility, it's not only the industry responsibility, it's not only the university responsibility, it's our responsibility all together to ask for a better environment, a better and sustainable environment, whether it is in our living place at home, or whether it is where we work at place. So it's up to us to ask for that. So when they will have this kind of strong will from the ground to ask for a more sustainable environment for ourselves, but also for our children, because it's very important. We are planning for our children when you build the building. Then let's ask for a greener place.